Hello, hello, my friends. We are ready to put all of our objects together to finish off our fish collage, okay? I have sprayed your fish or fixed them with fixative. Of course, if you rub super hard, you're gonna get a little bit off. But for the most part, look at your hands are gonna be pretty clean. All right, so the fixative is gonna keep that chalk on there so it doesn't come off while you're working on it. Let me show you how we're going to put together the background, the fish, and we're going to add a little bit of seaweed in there, okay? So we are ready to put everything together. Here is a final piece that's on a vertical format so you can kind of see how things are placed on there. All right, let's look at how we put that together. You're going to need your background. You're going to need your 3 fish that have all been sprayed and put together. And then you're going to need a little bit of seaweed, but we'll get into that later. So this fish, you can see, has been trimmed around the edges. He's not cut, he's torn. All right, so that's going to be our first step. You're going to take your fish and very carefully and slowly use those pincher fingers, and you are going to just tear all around the edges. All right? You can leave a little bit of the newspaper. That looks good. Okay? But you do not want to just take the paper and start doing this, because you know what's going to happen. It's going to tear right through the middle of your fish. So you have to very carefully and precisely use those pincher fingers together and move around the edge of your fish to tear him out. Right around those edges. All right, do you see how I'm working that out? Tearing around here, tear around his face. Oops, I don't want to get too close. I have to really work those pincher fingers together. If it starts to tear through your fish, then stop. And remember, we can always give it a little piece of tape on the back to repair anything that might have gotten torn off. But the biggest thing is you don't want to give it one big tear right across the middle of the newspaper. That would be a complete disaster because you will cut your little fish right in half. Oops, there we go. I got a little bit close right there, but that's okay. I can glue that down. There we go. All right, so he's all torn out. So I'm going to get all 3 of my fish torn out. Okay, I have my 3 fish, 1, 2, 3, all torn out. So now I can start thinking about placement on the paper. You know, do I want 2 up top? Do I want this one kind of swimming a little bit and overlapping that one? How do I want to put these guys together? The other thing is we want to bring in some seaweed. So I'm going to give you some green, dark green, and light green tissue paper. Same thing. We're going to tear the tissue paper into nice long strips, and we're going to use this as seaweed in the ocean. Now the seaweed will go up and down. Remember, our waves were horizontal. Seaweed is going to be vertical, up and down. And so you want some light ones, you want some dark ones, and you're going to start putting together your composition. All right? So first thing you're going to do is glue down some seaweed. Mix it up. Do some darks, do some lights. Remember, seaweed grows out of the bottom of the ocean, so you want these all down along the bottom edge. You don't want anything kind of floating up in the water. That doesn't make sense. It'll confuse your viewer. And you're going to put some of that seaweed in there. Get it nice and thin. Remember, seaweed is a type of grass. Here, all the seaweed is glued down in place. Then we're going to put your fish on there. We'll glue them into place. Where will they be? Which way do they face? Are these guys talking to each other? And this one's up above. Is he kind of looking down? All right. Try to keep everything on the paper. Move them around a little bit. See what you think. And then, after you glue the seaweed, then glue the fish. Here the fish are glued into place. No glue oozing out. Then just take 2 or 3 extra pieces of seaweed and put them on top of the fish. So you're almost sandwiching the fish in there. Because you know those fish would swim between the seaweed, not just in front of the seaweed. So maybe just 1 or 2 seaweeds here and there. You don't want to cover up too much of your fish because you spend a lot of time doing them. But you do want them everything kind of spread out along the edge. And then, you know, we'll trim off this part after everything dries. But get your composition kind of figured out. Seaweed, fish, seaweed. You're making a little sandwich and you're thinking about composition. All right? Then everything gets glued down. Remember, we use 1 line of glue on the waves. We'll use 1 line of glue on the seaweed. Don't forget, you want to glue your fish. You're going to put glue on the back all the way around the edges real good, and then glue them down so everything's sticking nice and flat. All right? So I will let you have at it. Your fish are good to go. Your seaweed is ready to be torn, and all we need to do is think about composition and how you're going to put everything together. All right? Love you, miss you, and I will see you next time. So here's my finished piece with seaweed on the top and bottom. And finally, we're going to put the finishing touches on. You may need an apron for this part. We're going to splatter a little bit of paint along the top of your picture. If you noticed on my picture, we're going to use some watered down tempera paint, and we're going to use a toothbrush to splatter the paint onto the picture. So I'm going to spread out some newspaper, even though we're outside. Definitely not inside. We've got watered down tempera paint, and I've got my toothbrush. I still don't want this tempera paint all over me. I'm going to dip the toothbrush into the paint, and then I'm going to use my thumb to scrape along the bristles of the toothbrush. So you can see, I can scrape this way, but pretty much the flinging goes up in the air. So I kind of want to do it upside down like this so that the flinging goes down onto my paper. And I'm going to stand back and just fling away. Notice how far away I am, and I'm not dropping big blobs on there. I'm just trying to get a little sprinkle throughout the picture. I'm trying to make it so the big blobs go down on my newspaper, and then the sprinkle goes all over. You don't want to completely cover it up, but you just want to give it a little bit of texture. I don't know, it looks like bubbles, anything. You're going to end up with a blue thumb. There you go.